Admiral Crick's VA's mandibles clicked with satisfaction as he recorded his daily entry. Through the pristine observation window of his command center, he watched his team of xenobiologists scurrying about their tasks with practiced precision. The facility's white walls gleamed under the artificial sunlight, a testament to both their cleanliness standards and their success rate. 17 years, he continued, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. 17 years of containing and studying the most dangerous species in the known galaxy. From the acid-breathing vorax of Sigma-9 to the reality-bending quantum jellies of the Horsehead Nebula, all have been properly documented, analyzed, and contained. He paused the recording to admire the wall of holographic commendations behind his desk. Each one represented a breakthrough in xenological research, a testament to the Crucible's reputation as the foremost research facility in the galaxy. His latest prize would soon join them, the first comprehensive study of a human specimen. Admiral Junior Researcher Plix burst through the doorway, her scales flushed with excitement. The human transport has arrived. Crick's VA straightened his ceremonial sash. Excellent. And the containment protocols? Triple-checked, sir. Though the human is, well, you should see for yourself. The Admiral followed Plix through the winding corridors of the Crucible. Their footsteps echoed against metal floors designed to withstand the most corrosive of alien secretions. They passed holding cells containing creatures that would give most sentients nightmares if they lived long enough to have them. I must note, Sir Plix chittered nervously, that the human insisted on walking in by himself. He refused the quantum containment field. Fascinating, Crick's VA mused. Their documented overconfidence matches our intelligence reports. They arrived at the primary intake chamber, where a dozen armed guards stood at attention. Through the reinforced viewport, Crick's VA got his first look at their newest subject. The human sat in a standard waiting chair, legs propped up on a decontamination table. Doing something absolutely baffling, he was solving a primitive puzzle cube and whistling. Welcome to the Crucible, human Crick's VA announced through the chamber's communication system. I am Admiral Crick's VA, head researcher of this facility. The human looked up and grinned. Not the threatening baring of teeth their briefings had warned about, but something almost friendly. Hey there, Tom Reynolds, at your service. Well, technically at the service of the Galactic Science Council's grant money, but who's counting? You understand why you're here, Crick's VA probed, noting the human's casual disregard for proper protocol. Sure do. You folks want to figure out why we humans are so hard to kill. Got a whole bunch of tests lined up, right? Death traps, survival scenarios. The works. Tom's eyes lit up with what appeared to be enthusiasm. Plix leaned closer to her superior. Sir, I don't think he's taking this seriously. Oh, I'm taking it very seriously, Tom chimed in, his hearing apparently far better than their data suggested. I just think it's hilarious that you're paying me to do what I basically did every summer at camp. You guys ever heard of something called an obstacle course? Crick's VA's mandibles twitched with annoyance. This facility has broken specimens far more impressive than you, human. We have a perfect record. Perfect record. Tom finished his puzzle cube with a flourish. Well, there's a first time for everything. So, when do we start? And more importantly, is there a cafeteria here? The flight over was super long and airline food, am I right? The Admiral turned to his assistant. Plix, prepare the preliminary trials. Level 8 containment protocols. Level 8. Plix's scales paled. But sir, that's reserved for Class X anomalies. Trust me, Crick's VA watched as Tom began trying to balance the puzzle cube on his nose. Something tells me we're going to need it. As they walked away from the intake chamber, the sound of cheerful whistling followed them down the corridor. For the first time in 17 years, Admiral Crick's VA felt a twinge of uncertainty about the Crucible's perfect record. Oh hey, Tom's voice carried through the comm system. Quick question, do you guys have Netflix? Test subject report, Day 1. Plix narrated into her datapad. The human specimen continues to defy our understanding of survivability metrics. She watched through the observation window as Tom Reynolds jogged on what was supposed to be their most advanced torture device, a gravity-variable treadmill currently set to 3 times standard gravity. This is boring, Tom called out, barely breaking a sweat. Mind if I turn up the speed a bit? Before Plix could respond, he'd already adjusted the controls. The machine whirred angrily as it accelerated to what their engineers had labeled lethal velocity. Now that's more like it, Tom exclaimed, breaking into a sprint. Reminds me of my morning runs back home. Though the air here's a bit thin, You guys got any way to reduce the oxygen content? Make it more challenging? Behind Plix, several junior researchers exchanged worried glances and adjusted their betting slips. The pool for what will finally break the human had grown to include increasingly absurd scenarios. Specimen displays unprecedented cardiovascular endurance. Plix continued recording, trying to maintain her professional demeanor. Moving on to chemical resistance trials, the next chamber featured their most corrosive atmosphere mix. Tom strolled in wearing nothing but the standard testing jumpsuit, much to the horror of the safety officers. Ooh, spicy, he coughed dramatically, then grinned. Reminds me of my Aunt Martha's chili. Though hers had more kick to it. You guys ever tried capsaicin? Now that's what I call a chemical weapon. Admiral Crick's VA burst into the observation room, all four eyes wide with disbelief. Why isn't he melting? The atmosphere is rated to dissolve Class 4 armor. Sir, one of the junior researchers raised a trembling appendage. I believe he's doing jumping jacks. Indeed, Tom had started a workout routine in the middle of the chamber, counting out loud between exaggerated coughs. Nothing like a bit of exercise to get the blood pumping. 28, 29. Move him to thermal resistance testing, Crick's VA ordered, his professional facade cracking slightly. Maximum intensity. The thermal chamber was designed to simulate the surface conditions of a neutron star, or at least a very small, very contained portion of one. Tom's reaction was not what they expected. Finally, a proper sauna, he sprawled on the chamber floor, completely relaxed. Hey, any chance you could turn up the heat? It's a bit chilly in here, and maybe add some water for steam? Really get that spa experience going. Plix watched her superior's face cycle through several interesting colors. Sir, should we proceed to the radiation trials? No point, muttered another researcher, tearing up his betting slip. He'll probably just ask if we can make it glow brighter so he can read a book. The day continued in much the same vein. The vacuum chamber? Tom treated it like a zero-gravity playground. The pressure tank? Great for my back pain. The sonic disruption array? He started dancing to the frequency. By evening, the betting pool had shifted from what would break him to what he'd say next. Current odds favored either a request for snacks or another comparison to Earth recreational activities. This is impossible, Admiral Crick's VA declared, reviewing the day's data. No species can be this resistant to everything. Oh, I'm not resistant to everything, Tom chimed in through the comm system, somehow having gained access to their private channel. Paperwork kills me. Literally cannot handle tax season. Total kryptonite. What's kryptonite? A junior researcher whispered. Probably another human leisure activity, another responded glumly. Plix finished her final notes for the day. Subject shows no signs of physical or psychological stress. However, the research team is experiencing unprecedented levels of frustration and confusion. Dr. Zix has begun stress molting, and lead engineer Kral has requested a transfer to the quantum anomaly department, claiming it would be less puzzling than human physiology. Hey, quick question, Tom's voice echoed through the facility again. For tomorrow's test, can we try something actually dangerous? Today felt more like a wellness retreat. Not that I'm complaining. The acid bath was very exfoliating. Admiral Crick's VA's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. Prepare the gauntlet. The entire room fell silent. Even the betting slips stopped changing hands. Sir Plix ventured carefully. The gauntlet hasn't been authorized since the incident. Exactly, Crick's VA's eyes gleamed with determination. Let's see him treat that like a spa day. Through the facility's monitoring system, they could hear Tom in his quarters, apparently doing push-ups while humming something called Eye of the Tiger. Oh, and guys, his cheerful voice interrupted their ominous planning. Anyone want to place a bet for me? I've got good odds on asks for a sandwich during deadly trial, just saying. Plix looked at her notes, then at the human's vital signs, which were better than when he'd arrived, and finally at her increasingly unhinged superior officer. She quietly started a new betting category, which researcher will have a breakdown first. The odds were not in Admiral Crick's VA's favor. The viewing gallery of the Crucible was packed. News of a human attempting the gauntlet had spread through the galactic scientific community faster than a quantum virus. Delegates from every major research institution crowded the reinforced observation deck, their various appendages clutching datapads and recording devices. Distinguished colleagues, Admiral Crick's VA addressed the assembled crowd, his ceremonial sash freshly pressed for the occasion. Today we will witness the ultimate test of our facility's containment capabilities. The gauntlet has never been survived, never been conquered, never been conquered, Never been. Hey, nice turnout, Tom's voice boomed through the speakers. Is there a concession stand? I could really go for some popcorn. The Admiral's eye twitched. Behind him, Plix quietly adjusted the facility's structural integrity fields, just in case. The gauntlet, Crix VA continued, trying to maintain his dignity, consists of 17 interconnected chambers, each designed to be independently lethal. The subject must traverse all chambers to reach the exit. There is no safe path, no rest areas. No. Quick question, Tom interrupted again, now doing stretches in the preparation room. Is this going to be like that American Ninja Warrior show? Because I've always wanted to try that. A confused murmur rippled through the alien audience. A Zorblaxian scientist raised several tentacles. What is this Ninja Warrior he speaks of? Irrelevant, Crix VA snapped. Allow me to describe the challenges that await. Chamber 1, the molecular destabilizer. The massive screen behind him displayed a room filled with swirling, purple energy that caused even light to break down into its constituent parts. Chamber 2, the quantum maze, where reality itself is merely a suggestion. Chamber 3, the pressure crusher, simulating the core of a gas giant. Chamber 4, the temporal distortion field, where time moves in 6 directions simultaneously. As the Admiral continued his list, several scientists fainted. A group of hive mind researchers split into their component beings out of sheer stress. Chamber 8, the plasma tornado chamber. Chamber 9, the dark matter pit. Chamber 10, the antimatter rain room. In the preparation room, Tom was now doing handstand push-ups. Hey, this might be a weird request, but can I get some music in there? Something with a good beat, really help set the mood. Chamber 15, Crix VA's voice was reaching previously undiscovered octaves, the neutron shredder. Chamber 16, the probability collapse zone, where the laws of physics are more like gentle suggestions. And finally, Chamber 17, the... Let me guess, Tom interjected, now juggling some spare quantum stabilizers he'd found. Something dramatic and scary sounding? The doom room? The death box? The really bad, no good, very bad place. The void, Crix VA screamed, finally losing his composure. It's called the void. Cool, Tom nodded appreciatively. Quick follow-up, can I bring a water bottle? Staying hydrated is important. A meganeuron scientist with an oversized brain case raised an appendage. Admiral, our calculations suggest that even attempting the gauntlet has a survival probability of -12%. How is the human so calm? They all turned to the screen showing Tom, who was now attempting to teach a maintenance robot to fist bump. Come on, buddy, it's easy. Up high, down low, too slow. No, wait, you actually are too slow. Your servos need updating. Plix approached the Admiral, who was stress-shedding scales at an alarming rate. Sir, the human's preparation time is complete. Should we begin? Yes, Crix VA straightened his now slightly molted sash. Human, are you ready to face your doom? Sure thing, Tom gave them a thumbs up. But first, anyone want to take any last-minute bets? The odds on me doing cartwheels through the quantum maze are pretty good. The betting pool, now involving most of the galactic scientific community, had grown so complex it required its own quantum computer to track the odds. Initiating gauntlet protocols, Plix announced, trying to maintain some professionalism. Charging molecular destabilizer, spinning up quantum maze. Activating pressure crusher, powering temporal. Hey, Tom interrupted one final time. Is it okay if I do this speed run style? I'm trying to set a good time for the leaderboard. There is no leaderboard. Crix VA's outburst caused several nearby delegates to molt in sympathy. No one has ever survived the gauntlet. Well, yeah, with that attitude, Tom shrugged, doing a few final jumping jacks. All right, I'm ready. Oh, wait, one more thing. The entire gallery held their breath. Anyone know if there's a sandwich shop nearby? This might make me a bit peckish. The Admiral's response was to slam the activation button so hard it cracked. The massive doors to the gauntlet began to open, revealing the swirling purple death of the molecular destabilizer. Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of indeterminate or fluctuating gender, Tom announced, sounding for all the world like a tour guide, welcome to Tom Reynolds' excellent adventure through the really bad, no good, very bad place. He turned to the camera and winked. That's right, I'm starting a franchise. As Tom strode confidently towards certain death, several things happened simultaneously. 3 more scientists fainted. The betting computer briefly achieved sentience from processing all the last-minute wagers. Admiral Crix VA began stress-eating quantum stabilizers. Plix started updating her resume. The human paused at the threshold of the gauntlet, turned back one final time, and asked with complete sincerity, "Are you sure you guys don't want to turn it up a bit? Make it more challenging? No? All right, but don't say I didn't ask." Then he literally skipped into the molecular destabilizer, humming what he claimed was his boss battle music. The assembled scientists watched in horror as the purple energy swirled around him. This was it. This would finally. "Ooh," tingly Tom's voice came through the speakers. "Reminds me of that time I stuck a fork in an outlet. Anyone mind if I do some cartwheels?" Admiral Crick's VA's last shred of professional dignity dissolved faster than a subject in the molecular destabilizer. Except, of course, for Tom Reynolds, who was now attempting to moonwalk through what was supposed to be instant death. Entering Chamber 1 molecular destabilizer, Plix announced, her voice trembling. Subject should be experiencing complete atomic breakdown. Now. "You know what this place needs?" Tom's cheerful voice echoed through the speakers. "Disco lights. The purple energy thing is cool, but imagine some strobes in here." The assembled scientists watched in disbelief as Tom not only remained molecularly stable but appeared to be practicing dance moves. Chamber 2 transition in 3, 2, 1. The quantum maze materialized around Tom, a constantly shifting labyrinth where reality fractured into infinite possibilities. Paths appeared and disappeared randomly, walls existed in multiple states simultaneously, and the laws of physics played jump rope with probability. "Oh sweet, a puzzle room," Tom exclaimed. "Let's see. If I'm in all possible locations at once, then logically one of me is already at the exit, right?" A quantum physics professor in the gallery fainted. That's not how it works," Admiral Crick's VA sputtered. "You can't just race you there," Tom called out to himself across multiple quantum realities, somehow turning the deadliest maze in the galaxy into a game of interdimensional tag. Subject is Plix consulted her instruments. Subject is simultaneously everywhere and nowhere, and apparently giving himself a high five across the multiverse. Chamber 3 pressure crusher, the facility's AI announced with what sounded suspiciously like resignation. The pressure equivalent to a gas giant's core slammed down. The viewing gallery held their breath, waiting for the inevitable. "Man, this is better than my chiropractor." Tom's voice came through, slightly squeezed but distinctly amused. "Hey, anyone else hear that pop? Pretty sure that fixed my lower back issues." A gravitational studies expert began stress eating their data pad. Moving to Chamber 4, temporal distortion field. Time began moving in 6 directions at once. Tom's voice echoed from different temporal points simultaneously. "Oh cool, I can watch myself watching myself. Hey, past me, duck in about 3 seconds. Thanks, future me. No problem, past me. Anyone else getting déjà vu?" Admiral Crick's VA turned to his temporal physics expert. "What's happening?" He's having a conversation with his temporal variants. And they're telling jokes. Indeed, Tom had somehow organized his various temporal selves into an impromptu comedy routine.
Chamber 5, Plasma Tornado Chamber.
Woohoo, multiple Toms cheered across time streams. Surfing time. Using a piece of debris that technically wouldn't exist for another 3 minutes, Tom rode the plasma vortex like a wave. "Hey, this reminds me of that water park back home," though the slides there were a bit more intense. The facility's AI attempted to announce Chamber 6, but seemed to be processing an existential crisis. "The dark matter pit appears to be entertaining him," Plix reported weakly. Tom's voice echoed up from the supposedly inescapable void. "Marco. Polo. Come on, dark matter particles, you're not playing right." By Chamber 7, the antimatter rain room, several scientists were taking notes on Tom's technique, while others were questioning their entire career choices. "Check this out," Tom called, somehow managing to dodge antimatter drops with a series of breakdancing moves. "I call this one the antimatter shuffle." Chamber 8's neutron shredder barely got a ooh tingly before Tom was through it. The probability collapse zone in Chamber 9 caused 3 quantum computers to have nervous breakdowns trying to calculate how he was surviving. "If you collapse all probabilities at once," Tom lectured as he strolled through impossibility, "there's technically a chance you'll collapse them into the most favorable outcome. It's like quantum optimism." A probability mechanics professor began rewriting their thesis on the spot. Chambers 10 through 14 became a blur of impossible survivals and increasingly casual commentary. Anyone got sunscreen? This radiation's great for the tan, but safety first. Hey, is that a black hole? Awesome. The event horizon looks like a water slide. Quantum uncertainty field? More like quantum party field, am I right? By Chamber 15, Admiral Crick's VA was being consoled by 3 psychologists while Plix had started a support group for confused scientists. Approaching Chamber 16, the AI announced, sounding thoroughly done with everything. The reality fracture zone. Oh man, Tom's voice came through clearly despite reality breaking down around him. This is like that one time I had too much coffee and pulled an all-nighter. Reality got pretty weird then too. He appeared to be skipping through the catastrophic breakdown of dimensional stability, occasionally stopping to wave at himself in other dimensions. Final chamber, Plix announced, her voice hollow. The void. The viewing gallery pressed against the windows. The void was their ultimate deterrent, a perfect absence of everything, a place where existence itself went to die. Tom's voice crackled through, hey, it's like my apartment back in college. Though the mini fridge really brightened the place up. They watched, impossible readouts flooding their screens, as Tom somehow managed to play hopscotch across nothingness. You know what this place needs? Plants. Maybe some throw pillows. A nice area rug would really tie the non-existents together. With a final hop, skip, and what appeared to be a perfect gymnastics landing, Tom Reynolds emerged from the Gauntlet's exit portal. He stretched, cracked his neck, and looked up at the stunned gallery with a grin. So how'd I do? Did I beat the high score? Oh wait, first-time survival, right? Guess that makes me the record holder by default. The facility's AI, perhaps driven to sass by the impossibility of it all, announced Gauntlet run completed. Time 17 minutes, 42 seconds. Notable achievements. Most physical laws broken in a single run. Most paradoxes created and resolved. First and only completion. Most dance moves performed in lethal conditions. Only 17 minutes. Tom looked genuinely disappointed. I can probably shave that down on the next run. Anyone want to time me? Admiral Crick's VA made a sound like a deflating balloon. Oh hey, Tom patted his stomach. About that sandwich? All that reality breaking really works up an appetite. The betting computer, which had achieved consciousness during the run, immediately retired to become a philosopher. The observation deck of the Crucible had descended into glorious chaos. 17 different species were having simultaneous existential crises. A group of quantum physicists huddled in a corner, rocking back and forth while mumbling equations. 3 separate scientific journals had spontaneously combusted. So Tom's voice came through the speaker as he wandered into the facility's cafeteria. Do you guys have turkey? I'm thinking turkey on rye, though I'm flexible. Had this amazing pastrami once after running through a live minefield. Really works up an appetite, you know. Admiral Crick's VA sat in the middle of the chaos, surrounded by the shattered remains of his professional certainties and several torn betting slips. The laws of physics, he muttered. They were more like guidelines. Sir Plix approached cautiously, holding a stack of data pads. The preliminary results from the Gauntlet run are, well, don't tell me. The Admiral raised a trembling hand. Let me guess, they make absolutely no sense. Actually, they make perfect sense. That's what's breaking everyone. According to our readings, the human just ignored what should have killed him. Like he didn't get the memo that these things were lethal. Across the room, a team of reality compliance officers were filing their resignation letters. The temporal physics department had started a support group, though no one could agree when it had begun or would end. Hey, quick question. Tom poked his head back into the observation deck, half a sandwich in hand. That void chamber at the end? Have you guys considered renting it out as a meditation space? Very peaceful. Great for clearing your head. Speaking of which, anyone want the other half of this sandwich? No? More for me. A distinguished professor from the Galactic Science Academy stood up, straightened her gravity-defying robes, and declared, "Everything we know about universal constants must be rewritten." Then she ate her own degree. The betting pool results are announced a junior researcher who had apparently appointed himself bookkeeper. The only winning bet was placed by the human himself. All eyes turned to Tom, who was now attempting to teach a cleaning robot how to dab. Oh yeah, he grinned, high-fiving the confused robot. I bet that I'd ask for a sandwich right after completing the gauntlet. Speaking of which, these winnings should cover about 17 more sandwiches. Admiral Crix VA suddenly stood up, his eyes blazing with a manic gleam. I understand now. The room fell silent, except for Tom's cheerful munching. Our whole approach was wrong, the Admiral continued. We've been studying the universe's deadliest phenomena, trying to understand and contain them. But humans just.
Wing it, Tom suggested helpfully. Go with the flow? Play it by ear. Improvise, adapt, overcome.
They make friends with death, Crix VA shouted, now pacing frantically. The human treated the gauntlet like an amusement park. He turned the void into a recreation room. He made the quantum uncertainty field do party tricks. Plix was furiously taking notes. Sir, are you suggesting? We must completely restructure the Crucible. No more containment. No more treating deadly phenomena as threats. We must learn the human way. We must. Have fun with it, Tom suggested, now wearing a party hat he'd somehow acquired in the probability collapse zone. Yes, the Admiral turned to the assembled scientists. From this day forward, the Crucible will be renamed the Human Approach to Supposedly Lethal Encounters Laboratory, or HAZEL for short. HAZEL, Tom raised an eyebrow. Might need to workshop that name a bit. And you, Crix VA pointed at Tom. How would you like a job as our chief survival entertainment consultant? Does it come with sandwich privileges? All the sandwiches. Cool, Tom nodded. But first, mind if I run the gauntlet again? I've got some ideas for a speed run strategy. Maybe we could set up a leaderboard, add some collectibles, make it multiplayer. The assembled scientists watched in horror and fascination as their most sophisticated and deadly testing facility was systematically transformed into what Tom kept referring to as the galaxy's most extreme obstacle course. Oh, and one more thing, Tom added, brushing sandwich crumbs off his shirt. Anyone up for karaoke in the quantum maze later? The acoustics in there are amazing. Somewhere in the background, the laws of physics filed for early retirement. 6 months later. Welcome to the Crucible's Extreme Adventure Academy, Tom's voice boomed through the facility's newly installed sound system, where certain death meets certain fun. The former deadly research facility had undergone a dramatic makeover. The molecular destabilizer now featured disco lights. The quantum maze had a scoreboard and collectible power-ups. The void had been redecorated with throw pillows and a mini fridge, just as Tom had suggested. Admiral Crix VA, wearing a new sash that read Chief Fun Officer, stood beside Tom as they watched the latest batch of human recruits warming up for their morning run through the gauntlet. Remember, folks, Tom announced into his microphone, personal best times are posted in the antimatter cafeteria. Current record is 15 minutes 12 seconds, set by Grandma Jenkins during last week's Senior Citizens Extreme Physics Tour. I still can't believe she knitted a scarf while surfing the plasma tornado, Plix remarked, checking her tablet. The footage went viral across 3 galaxies. The galactic scientific community had undergone its own transformation. The latest academic papers bore titles like The Joy of Temporal Displacement, A Human Perspective, and Quantum Uncertainty, just vibing with it. How are the new training programs going? Crix VA asked, watching a group of humans playing leapfrog through the probability collapse zone. Great, Tom beamed. Though we had to add more extreme options. Turns out the original gauntlet was too easy. We've got an ultra mode now. Involves juggling dark matter while reciting poetry in 6 temporal directions. A klaxon sounded, and Tom checked his watch. Oh, there's the lunch bell. Today's special in the cafeteria is quantum entangled spaghetti. You can eat both ends at once. As they walked to lunch, they passed the facility's new mission statement, carved in glowing quantum-shifted letters. If it might kill you, it might thrill you. Tom Reynolds, first of his name, breaker of physics, dancer with death, master of sandwiches. The betting pool, now a legitimate galactic enterprise, had expanded to include categories like most creative use of a black hole and best dance moves in zero probability space. Oh, by the way, Tom mentioned casually as they entered the cafeteria, we're getting a new batch of alien exchange students next week. The Zorblaxians want to learn our secret to survival. And what will you tell them? Crix VA asked, watching a group of humans playing frisbee with a disk of condensed spacetime. Same thing I tell everyone, Tom shrugged, building a sandwich that existed in 3 dimensions simultaneously. Humans aren't actually that tough. We're quite fragile, really. Fragile. Plix nearly choked on her quantum coffee. You literally used the void as a bouncy castle yesterday. Exactly, Tom grinned. We're so fragile that we had to get really good at turning deadly things into fun things. It's like Aggressive optimism meets creative problem-solving meets absolute refusal to read warning labels. As if to prove his point, the cafeteria speakers crackled with an announcement. Attention all participants. Today's advanced temporal athletics class will be held last Thursday. Please remember to arrive after you've already finished. Now, if you'll excuse me, Tom stood up, brushing interdimensional crumbs from his safety third t-shirt. I promised to teach the quantum physics professors how to crowd surf on probability waves. Anyone want to join? I hear it's going to be temporal. Admiral Crick's VA watched him go, shaking his head with newfound understanding. The humans hadn't conquered death. They'd simply invited it to party. And somehow, that made them the most terrifying species of all.